Hello, so this is Noah from the future. Like about maybe 2-3 hours after I recorded the podcast, I just wanted to give a kind of schedule update real quick. So, episode 2, this is episode 2 of the I Know About It sports podcast. Welcome in. This episode, I'm just going to focus on reviewing the week 6 of the college football season because it was a ton that transpired. Maybe tomorrow, which is Tuesday, October the 8th, or Wednesday, I'll do the WWE Bad Blood review and just kind of focus more on exclusively just wrestling in general. And then I'll have the week 7 college football predictions by Thursday or Friday. I want to get those a little earlier than what I did for the first episode, but, sorry to bombard you with maybe up to 4 episodes in the first week. But, this is the busiest time for sports in general, October, early to mid-October. So, it's just the way it's got to be, in the fall because there's a lot happening. But hope you enjoy, and the intro and episode should start hopefully right now. Enjoy. Hello and welcome back to the second episode of the I Know About It sports podcast. I am Noah Arnold, and today we're just going to be focusing on the week 6 that just wrapped up of the college football season, 2024. And, well, if you are a casual of college football, you probably looked at this slate and thought, this is going to be a nothing week. Well, this is usually the weeks that stuff happens. We had a ton of upsets. We had the number 1 team in the country go down to an unranked. Number 4 team in the country go down to an unranked. We had the Mizzou number 9 get blown out by the 25th ranked team in the country. The number 10 ranked team lost handedly to an unranked team. And the number 11 team in the country lost handedly to an unranked team. An overall chaotic week. We had Vanderbilt beating Alabama. We had essentially the Harvard of the South in Vanderbilt, where all the smart kids go in Tennessee and the Nashville area, beating Alabama. And that's a game that nobody saw coming. If you thought Vanderbilt was better this year, they are improved. Maybe they could have put up a fight against Bama, but nobody thought they were going to outright beat Bama and outright outplay Alabama. We'll get into that in a little bit, but I went on the thing in my predictions. I posted them on Twitter. I said them on the podcast last week. I went 7-3 in week 6, which I had Oregon over Michigan State, Syracuse over UNLV, A&M over Missouri. I got Louisville over SMU wrong, Ohio State over Iowa, Ole Miss over South Carolina, Clemson over Florida State. I got wrong Tennessee over Arkansas and Michigan over Washington. Both those games I will get into later. And I also had Miami over Cal. Well, to start the show, you can't not start the show with Vanderbilt beating Alabama. Bama didn't lose to Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt beat Alabama. It's simple as that. Now, granted, year 1 under Nick Saban in 2007, they lost to Louisiana Monroe. But that was a rebuilding Alabama team. That was not the Alabama team that we know now. The 7-time national champion since then. Or 6. I can't keep track of that. Vanderbilt just straight up outplayed Alabama. Diego Pavia, the transfer from New Mexico State, who last year went on the road to the other Alabama team in Auburn and beat them by 21, beat the brakes off of the Tigers on the Plains. Now he goes into this game against the Tide and goes 16 of 20, 252, 2 touchdowns and no picks. His New Mexico State buddy, the tight end Eli Stowers, who came over from the Aggies, went 6 for 113. He said he grew up watching Johnny Manziel play, and he, by God, played like it. Just a phenomenal game. Kept the ball moving so many times on crucial third downs, either with his legs or with his arm. Just tremendous against the Tide. And he was passionate on the post game too. Probably saw him drop an F-bomb with Alyssa Lang. But Vanderbilt, simply, as I said, they outplayed Alabama. Time possession-wise, 42 minutes for Vanderbilt, 17 and a half for Alabama. Vanderbilt just kept the ball and kept moving, and they went 12 of 18 on third down. I can't tell you the last time anybody's done that on Alabama. It had to be maybe 2019 LSU, maybe one of the Trevor Lawrence or the Deshaun Watson-led Clemson teams. I can't think of the last time somebody put up that good a performance on Alabama. And I'm bringing up these stats again. Bama only 3 of 6 on third down. It's not bad, but yeah, Vanderbilt just absolutely dominated time possession. This is probably going to maybe launch the Commodores to maybe finally being a 6 or 7 win team that they've been desperately trying to be for so long. They've invested so much in that program with a lot of rich boosters. You know, they're the Harvard of the South. They have a lot of rich boosters, especially in the Nashville area. They've invested millions into rebuilding the stadium, which I don't know if that's ever going to get done. Facilities, and just overall trying to change the perception of the Commodores as being the laughingstock of the SEC. And simply, this might be a program-changing victory for Vanderbilt, as long as they don't potentially get poached with their coach getting poached, some of their players getting poached. This might be the launch of Vanderbilt, being one of the legit programs, maybe on a Carolina, Kentucky level, where they're occasional bowl getting team. It's like a good place for Vanderbilt to try and get to. Yeah, I'm trying to move quickly here, but I cannot overemphasize just how big of an upset this was. Vanderbilt was 0-60 all time against AP top 5 teams. And they beat number 1. They beat the team who the previous week had the game of the year against the Georgia Bulldogs. And then immediately the following week, Vanderbilt is ripping down the goalpost, taking them about 3 miles down the street and throwing them in the Cumberland River. They walked past Jason Aldean's bar right through Broadway with a goalpost. Just incredible. And I'm going to move on pretty quickly here to Arkansas beating Tennessee. I got home to watch this. As I said, I went to the Ole Miss Carolina game. I'll get into that. Arkansas is simply just more resilient team than Tennessee. I know against Oklahoma, Tennessee, they look a little sluggish on offense. They had a lot of growing pains. Nico Imalavia, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, so growing. And I predicted Tennessee to drop maybe 30 on Arkansas. They could not move the ball outside of about 2 drives. In the first half, it was 3-0 at halftime, where Arkansas, first drive of the game opening drive, they went 16-74, 9-12 off the clock, got a field goal. That was the only points of the first half. Tennessee only had 51 yards at halftime. Had 4 drives had 4 drives total, 2 ended in 3 and outs, and one of them ended on downs. And simply put, halftime, this was the most sluggish a Josh Heupel-led team has probably ever looked. And simply put, they always have the Vol syndrome. And I know plenty of Tennessee fans where they get up to these highs like this, and then they realize, we're at the crash out, and they always do. And it looked like this was going to be the game that they do, and they did. They had the big victory over Oklahoma. They found their quarterback. They moved in the top 4 in the country. They had a Morgan Wallen concert. The less said about my opinions on Morgan Wallen, the better. But it looked like Tennessee maybe could finally crack. Maybe. But Simply put, the Hogs ran wild on this one. But in the second half, Tennessee, bam, touchdown to start. Then they force a 3-and-out, touchdown immediately, go up 14-3 on a Razorback team that could not move the ball. But Taylor Green cut the lead down to 14-10, then eventually 14-13. But Taylor Green, the Arkansas quarterback, got hurt late in the fourth quarter. They put in Malachi Singleton, a little-known true freshman who started the fourth quarter, couldn't do a damn thing. Couldn't do anything. But then just the defense manages to hold on just enough. They have one drive with a backup true freshman who didn't look that great. They ended up getting a 13-yard pass from that freshman, followed by another true freshman, Braylon Allen, a 252-pound bowling ball of a human being. Guy, if he wasn't a running back, he'd be a world champion wrestler right now. He has a 24-yard run, 11-yard run, just bulldozed through the Tennessee defense. Before Malachi Singleton gets a go-ahead 11-yard touchdown run with about a minute-ish left in the game. I think Tennessee had about 2 timeouts left as well. And it looked like, they said on the call too immediately, Tennessee essentially kind of let him score. Now, I know a lot of y'all, some of y'all who listen may not know the game of football that much. And that's okay, but simply if, it's late in the game, you want to try and save clock to get your offense back on the field rather than, the other team running the clock down, kicking a field goal. It's only a 1-point game. Kick a field goal, they can win. You want to try and give your offense that's looked explosive in the first couple games, maybe give them a chance to win. You let the other team score, and, you have at least a chance to try and win the game. That's what Tennessee did. Lee was 19-14 after they couldn't get a 2-point. Arkansas couldn't get a 2-point conversion to make it 21-14. And it looked like Tennessee was driving down the field, but it just stalled out. And on a fourth down, 4th and 5, with 6 seconds left, Nico rolls out and runs out of bounds with no time on the clock. He didn't know what the time was. He didn't realize the clock had already drained down, and Arkansas pulls off the biggest victory they've had since 2007 when they knocked off the number 1 LSU Tigers, who ended up going on to win the national championship that season. But yeah, Tennessee, we saw cracks in the Oklahoma game. They look great on defense, but it's a young quarterback and young team in general. Maybe they got a little too overhyped, a little too overzealous, but they simply look flustered on the road. Especially once they went up 14-3 early third, and you kind of figured that they were going to pull away with it. It kind of seemed like they were a bit taken back by Arkansas immediately going right out down the field and scoring a touchdown and not going away. It definitely felt that way as Tennessee, after that touchdown Arkansas did, they did next to nothing offensively for the rest of that game. Yeah, they had 5 plays punt, 8 plays punt, a 3-and-out that they tried to run the clock out. That's led to Arkansas getting the touchdown, the go-ahead touchdown, and then they couldn't pull it out with 1:17 left as their quarterback ran out of bounds. So a whole lot of nothing after that touchdown where their quarterback went 17-29, 158, no touchdowns, no picks, 39.5 QBR. That is abysmal for Nico Imalavia. As that I pray I'm pronouncing that correctly. But simply put, young quarterback, he has great potential, and he just ran into a buzzsaw of the Razorback defense. I like Sam Pittman as a coach. The offense has been very shaky in it. It was very shaky this game too, but maybe they found something with this running game. The true freshmen ran wild. Russell, he only came in because Jackson, the other running back, I think also got hurt as well. And Russell came in, 6'1", 252. Keep handing him the ball. That's a Derrick Henry type back. Keep giving him that damn rock. and they're eventually going to crack open something. He looked tremendous rushing, 8 for 62, 8 yards a pop. He looked great. And Taylor Green, I wasn't a fan of him. He impressed, 19 of 27, 266. Led a couple great touchdown drives as well. He looked impressive against a vaunted Vols defense. Maybe Arkansas has a little something. They're not going to compete for an SEC title or playoff spot. Maybe they can get to like 6 or 7 wins. It's a good spot for the Razorback program. And I like Pittman. I like the direction of this program. They're just in a rough spot. Not a lot of people want to commit to Arkansas. Arkansas is not a desirable destination. But maybe they have a good coach. They did bring in Coach Cal for basketball. So maybe the Razorbacks looking on the up and up. I guess the Walmart money, maybe is helping them out a little bit. But yeah, great win for the Razorbacks. Tough loss to Tennessee. It doesn't end their season. Granted, it probably ends their chances at being in the SEC title game. But, with the new playoffs, not out of it yet. But, when we get to November, they're going to feel a loss like this when Arkansas maybe has 4 or 5 losses at that point. They're going to feel it. Moving on to one of the most entertaining games. If you stayed up for this one on the East Coast, hats off to you. I was struggling. The commentator, Reese Davis, who subbed in late to be the play-by-play man, he was struggling. He worked a 22-hour shift this game. The fans at Cal, incredible. Game day, which somebody may know, it's a morning show for college football. They start 9 a.m. to noon when the games kick off. Fans arrive there early, but it's 9 a.m. on the East Coast, meaning it was 6 a.m. on the West Coast. And fans were out there way before then, too. It was thousands of people in Berkeley, the first time they ever been. And to put into perspective of how this game went, it was 2 a.m. local time was for the Cal marching band's call time to be at game day to perform. The game didn't kick off till 7:30 p.m. local time. And that place was still, and those fan base was still rocking. They made Miami flustered in the first half. Great atmosphere, great addition to the ACC and Cal, despite them being all the way on the East Coast. And so I know a couple people don't follow sports, and college sports recently has done a lot of conference shifts, and so, or may think of it as a school district, if you will. Essentially, California and their Bay Area rival Stanford now play in the Atlantic Coast Conference this year. And this was the first game that Cal played at home against an Atlantic Coast Conference team in Miami. Just trying to boil that into your head for a second, that Miami, Florida, and California are, in the Bay Area, are in the same conference in the Atlantic Coast Conference. It's a bit weird. It's a bit weird. But if you're not really a fan of football, you may like this Cal, not really team, but maybe their program, because they got some of the funniest fans on social media. They take what is essentially political division in this country and use it to make memes, where they kind of lean into the California super leftist stereotypes and make some very funny memes. Like when they get a turnover, they say "our ball," and they're redistributing the ball, if you will. I'm trying to find the right words to use. But anyways, time to move on to the game. Miami was getting their ass kicked. 35-10 mid-third quarter. Now, first half, Cal gets off to a hot start as probably everybody expected. Jay Knott, ought to go with the Chapel Rome song. 2 touchdowns first half, had a 66-yard touchdown reception. 21-10, but Cal started with the second half to get the ball. Maybe they could go up 28-10. They go 3 and out immediately, lose yards as well. Now Miami gets the ball back, a little bit calmer. Had a rough first half of their veteran-led team with Cam Ward, who's been in these big situations before. He's currently the Heisman candidate, or the Heisman leading candidate. And he immediately throws a pick six. And one of the dumbest throws I have seen a quarterback make in a while. He throws it, moves to his right, chucks it back to the middle of the field to his left, cross body, easily picked off by Noel Williams for a pick six. The place, after they kind of felt that, happens a lot where a road team who's a big underdog gets off to a hot start and then, fizzles out. And immediately, bam, 28-10 just like that. That place is rocking again. Miami stumbles on the next drive again. Cal goes down, 5-play, 80-yard drive with a 56-yard completion from the Miami, Florida native Mendoza to Javion Thomas. 35-10 mid-third quarter. This game looks like it is getting ready to be a rout, getting ready to look like it's over. The guy who grew up a Miami fan in Mendoza, grew up in the Miami area, walking distance from the campus, was not recruited by his hometown program, is going to then absolutely curb stomp his hometown team that didn't want him. Miami then proceeds to have a 12-play, 75-yard drive that went 5 minutes, 4 seconds, ending in a Cam Ward touchdown pass. And as I said, after they went down 35-10, Miami then scored 4 straight touchdowns, including after that first drive that I mentioned, the 12-play drive. They had a 2-point conversion, make it 35-18. That became important because they figured if they get into a late situation, they can kick a field or an extra point and go up 39-38. And that is exactly what happened. Exactly. Or I think at that time it was actually when they kicked it was 35-18, and they thought maybe they could tie the game. I can't do math. But it's like what happened. They ended up winning 39-38. Cal only had 3 points after going up 35-10. They were outscored 28-3 after the hot start. Cam Ward came into the game as the leading candidate to win the Heisman Trophy, best player in the country. 4 touchdowns after being down 35-10 to win the game. Now, granted, with 20 seconds left, what was the game-winning touchdown controversial, as it looked like it was a bunch of illegal linemen down the field. But it probably could have been called, but I don't think those linemen had any effect on the play. So I think it was a decent no call. And Miami escapes Berkeley with a win at, I think it was about 2:30 a.m. for me. And the players, 2:30 a.m. on their bodies too. Incredible game. Really could have hoped Cal could have got that stamp, but Miami looks like they're going to be the front runners of the ACC, but they've escaped the last 2 weeks. And it's not going to be easy going forward for Miami. Moving on in a game that I picked A&M to win, and I thought their defense was going to hold Mizzou a lot. Now that they hold Mizzou a lot, they completely curb stomped Missouri. This game was over at halftime. It was 24-0 at half. Missouri only had 79 yards of offense. And, A&M just killed them. They killed them. It was 34-0 in the third quarter for Missouri got a point, which was a 59-yard touchdown from Cook to Theo Weiss Jr. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Not going to get too much into details. Connor Weigman, I thought he wasn't as good as the other starter who was starting for them. I forgot his name. But he came in 18 of 22, 276, no touchdowns, no picks. It was Marcel Reed. Marcel Reed was a true freshman who I thought should have been started. But Weigman played his ass off. It looked like his job was on the line. 18 of 22, 276, and 5 for 33 on the ground. Le'Veon Moss, 12 for 138 and 3 touchdowns. Just dominated this Missouri defense. And the stat of the day, A&M 512 yards to 252 yards for Missouri. A&M had 236 rushing yards to Missouri 68. And this was crazy because the time possession was relatively close. And this game had 0 turnovers, and A&M had more penalties than Missouri. But simply put, Missouri just couldn't really move the ball too well, and A&M just whooped their ass. Simple as that. Moving on, Washington and Michigan. The Huskies down the Wolverines 27-17. Alex Orji, and some of y'all don't maybe not know college football. The Michigan reigning national champions. This was a national championship rematch from last year, Michigan and Washington. The current starting quarterback for Michigan, he's not going to be the starting quarterback for much longer. His name is, in fact, Alex Orji. Yes, his last name is Orji. And he can't really throw the ball. He was benched in the early second quarter after going 3 of 7 for 15 yards and 3 of 11 on the ground. He has yet to throw for 100 yards in a game in his career. Jack Tuttle, Indiana transfer, saw his first action on the year. And his first real game action since his only career start in 2021 for the Hoosiers when they faced Michigan State in a loss in a game that he looked terrible in. He ended up in this game going 10 of 38 for 98 yards and a touchdown. But in the fourth quarter, when Michigan had a 17-14 lead heading into the fourth quarter, he had an interception and a fumble, and that essentially cost the Wolverines the game as they ended up being outplayed thoroughly in the fourth quarter. I believe it was 13-0 fourth quarter for the Huskies. And Will Rogers, the veteran quarterback, played tremendous against this tough Wolverine defense. And simple as that, Michigan does not have a quarterback. They did great running the ball. This teams know that they just cannot throw the ball. I have yet to see a team have this bad of a passing game at a big level like this, the reigning national champions, in a very long time. I have to think back to maybe I had a couple LSU teams in there before Joe Burrow where they just couldn't do anything passing the ball. But maybe, honestly, Michigan's not what they were last year when they won the national championship, but it's looking rough up there in Michigan. I guess when you can't steal the signs, you can't win the game. It's as simple as that. Moving on to the game I was at, I wore a mustard t-shirt. Some of y'all may get that against Ole Miss. And some of y'all don't. A couple years ago, the head coach of Ole Miss was previously a coach at Tennessee, and when he returned to Tennessee as the head coach of the Ole Miss Rebels, they got pissed off at him and threw multiple bottles, whatnot, including a mustard bottle famously was thrown at him, and also a golf ball was thrown at him as well in that game when he returned to Tennessee. So I wore a mustard t-shirt, a French's mustard t-shirt. A couple people got it. I thought it was a good gag too. What was also a good gag was Carolina's offense. They got absolutely curb stomped in this game. And that was essentially it felt like it was over early. Ole Miss 3-0 to start. Carolina also looked like they were going to go 3-0 to start, but it looked like they were getting ready to do a fake punt. Everybody in the stadium knew they were going to do a fake punt. And so what do? When everybody knows what you're about to run? Well, you run it anyway, of course. And they got blown up immediately, set up Ole Miss in great field position, scored a touchdown to go up 7-0 early. Then Carolina had another 3-and-out. Actually, no, they had a drive that had a 17-yard completion to the tight end Simon. They had a pass interference, got him into Ole Miss territory. Then they got cute. They subbed in Robbie Ashford, who was the starting quarterback for the Akron game, after Lenore Sellers got injured. They tried to do a two-quarterback scheme with Lenore out wide and Ashford keeping the ball. And Ashford immediately fumbles it. And you kind of felt it. The stadium felt it right there. The game was over. Ole Miss, next play, had a 29-yard completion to the former Gamecock Juice Wells. And 14-0, game was over. And the stadium was clearing out early second quarter. Almost completely cleared out by halftime, and it was 24-3. And it felt like it was over, and it was over. in the first drive of the second half, though, Beamer got deep in the Ole Miss territory, but on a 4th and 4, instead of just trying to get a touchdown to make it a 24-10 game, which is only a 2-score game, he, for some dumb reason, decided to try a field goal, and they missed it, and that was it. Carolina did nothing after that, besides late in the fourth quarter, or late third, early fourth, had a 13-play, 69-yard drive when they were down 27-3, and the entire stadium, besides my small little student section, well, the very few students who stayed, and Lenore Sellers threw an interception on the goal line right in front of me, and that was it. Throughout the game, Carolina fans relentlessly booed Juice Wells, especially early in the game. The game started hot with the crowd because it was the return of Juice Wells, the former South Carolina Gamecock superstar receiver, who I cannot repeat the expletives. I said I keep this a PG show. Boy, I heard some stuff I haven't heard in years talking about Juice Wells. And he was relentlessly booed right to the very end. And it felt like the Kevin Durant returned to Oklahoma City game a couple years ago. It was that bad. Probably worse. And luckily for him, it wasn't. Kind of like with Kevin Durant in Oklahoma City, the place cleared out because they were beating him, the old team, bad enough. But Juice, 3 of 97, would have had a touchdown on a 66-yard touchdown, but fumbled into the end zone for a touchback right from the student section. And boy, it was 27-3. Game was already over, but that was the happiest that place has been all day in a long time as well. They hate that guy. Hate him. But stats to put out, just South Carolina's, it feels like they're limiting Sellers, and some of that maybe he's a young, inexperienced guy, but the other part maybe that Carolina doesn't have the weapons offensively. To start, they would. Jared Brown was a non-factor in this game, coming off the injury. Nick Harbor, who had the most potential at any receiver in the country, he has just not lived up to it. And Mazio Bennett, the true freshman, looks like he's pretty good, but he's a slot guy. He can't really stretch the ball as much as you want. Gage Laverde, the transfer, has been okay. He's not exactly a guy who also stretches the field, but he's okay as a receiver. But Lenore Sellers' best attribute is cannon of an arm to throw the ball down the field and his running ability. But simply put, they have an average offensive line and no receivers stretch the ball down the field. So it super limits what this Carolina team can do. And simple as that, Ole Miss, after the loss to Kentucky last week, they didn't have to do a lot. They just steamrolled through Williams-Brice, Columbia, South Carolina, a game that had a lot of hype going into it. Now, and also some of you who maybe didn't watch this game, not really a football person, it was 24-3 mid-third quarter. The game was over at that point.